And blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, just a few days away from two big events in the Treasure Valley, which we'll be talking about coming up. The one being the Boise Music Festival, where you have Pitbull, the Eli Young Band, Tone Loc, and other great acts of today and yesterday coming to the Treasure Valley, Expo, Idaho. It's going to be big. 10 years of the Boise Music Festival. And then our friends at God and Country will be there for the fireworks in Nampa, Idaho on the 26th, where we have the other end of the spectrum, where it's about God, country, community. 53 years of God and Country. That event is free and open to the public. TreasureValleyGodandCountry.com for more details. Well, how do you like the cost of energy? How goes it when we're taking a look at just the high cost of fuel? It's always on our minds as we get ready for the summer season. Is there some type of answer to our energy challenges? Will energy ever be very affordable? Well, joining us now is the CEO of American Resources, Mark Jensen. Mr. Jensen, thank you for joining us and welcome to Idaho.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
You know, we love coal. We think coal is great. It's been vilified under the previous administration of former President Barack Obama, but I think there are actually not many, but there are, I think, up north, some coal mines in the state of Idaho.
Yeah, there's quite a few coal mines scattered throughout the country, and I think it's one of the most under-acknowledged resource we have in this country for what it brings to the table.
Certainly the most vilified.
That is correct. It's vilified, yet the same people that are vilifying it can't go an entire day, probably not even an entire hour without touching something that is produced from coal.
So what can we do for you today? Why are we here to talk about coal?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that we look at is, I mean, it's a vilified resource, yet at the same point, American Resources, we're a NASDAQ-traded company, one of the fastest-growing companies in our industry. And the one thing that I think is really overlooked is the cost of infrastructure, the cost of not putting resources into our infrastructure. And at the end of the day, with the steel production that is produced from our coal, by not investing in that, we're actually spending more as a country due to the inefficiencies that are created, let alone the fact that, I mean, you can't replace coal. It's a resource that's used across the country for multiple uses, let alone our energy grid. But from the infrastructure side of it, it's what keeps our citizens safe.
Sure. What does it take to mine coal?
I mean, it's a highly regulated industry. I mean, the one thing it does take is a safe and efficient process. That's something that we obviously pride ourselves on. But I mean, the cost of doing so, it's a very labor-intensive industry, which is good for our people. It creates a lot of jobs when we put our new mines into production. But the companies nowadays really have to focus on the environment and focus on doing things that are safe, reliable, and good for the overall economy and industry.
Sure. I'm talking about when, to actually go in there and mine that stuff.
Yeah, so most of our mines are underground, so they have minimal disturbances on the environment. But at one of our mines alone, we employ over 110 people, and we use big industrial machines that are built here in America. And I mean, it's a 6-day a week, 24 hours a day job. Obviously, multiple crews on multiple shifts.
I can imagine the courage it would apply to go into a mine and do that for a living.
Yeah, I mean, it's underground, but I mean, from a courage perspective, it's more of just overcoming the aspect that you're in a space that's 6 to 7 feet high and underground. But from a safety perspective, our mines and the mines nowadays in our country are very safe. The companies that are operating our industry wouldn't be operating unless they ran really safe environments for our people.
Sure. Mr. Jensen, if people want more information about your group, what can they do?
Yeah, you can go to AmericanResourcesCorp.com, as well as we are a NASDAQ-listed public company, so SEC websites. On the SEC website, we provide a lot of information. Our partner and investment bank at Maxim Group, they provide a lot of information on their MVest website. But we pride ourselves in communicating with the community on what we do for not only the local community, but also the country and how we provide our product throughout.
Well, we appreciate your time in Idaho this morning. Thank you.
Kevin, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jensen joining us. I like that guy. He goes, hey, man, this is what it's about. I love the informalness. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. There was a big hearing yesterday that I want to get to. Number one, by the way, good news, oil prices fall as oil stocks climb. So I guess that's good news if you have stock in the oil company. There are a couple issues that I do want to get to, but none more important than what happened yesterday before Congress. And you had Jon Stewart there. Jon Stewart, you remember the comedian, he's a lib. We don't really have a lot in common with Jon Stewart, but Jon Stewart cares about Americans. Jon Stewart cares about people that have suffered from 9/11. So Jon Stewart had some strong words for Congress yesterday, but he didn't issue them from behind the studio desk as he's done in the past on television. Stewart addressed lawmakers asking them to re-up funding for the Victims' Compensation Fund portion of the 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, which will soon run out of money. Now, you're thinking about this. Why is this important? Let's take a listen to what Jon Stewart had to say to members of Congress. And even if you don't agree with Jon Stewart, which I don't, this is something I think we can all agree on.
If I read you some of the tweets and quotes that these individuals write about these 9/11 first responders and how we owe them such a great debt and how our freedom is based on their character and their struggle, and then turn around and vote these bills down, the hypocrisy is just stunning.
Mr. Stewart continues.
What we're saying is just renew the VCF fund. There's no fraud. It runs beautifully. It's an incredible program. And look, this was war. And these are the casualties of war. And we can't stop supporting them just because they can no longer serve us.
You know, that's a very good point. And we ask so much of our first responders. We ask so much of our military, the bravest, the brightest, the best, right? We do. And in return, we always give them the short shift. They don't complain. Maybe their families, rightfully so, complain, but not funding the 9/11 Victims Fund? Like I said, I don't agree with Jon Stewart on just about anything. And I'm sure people listening right now, I'm sure you listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM are going, Jon Stewart's a lib. He hates the president. He loves Obama. He's down with Clinton. But when it comes to bringing people together, what is Congress doing?
The reason why I work so hard on this is I feel like I can never repay the debt that these men and women gave to not just New York City, but to the country. They brought a stability by their moral courage and their actions. They showed us what was so worthy of our country, why it was so important for us to fight back. And I feel like I can never repay that.
Well, we can never repay the people that went into those towers, the people that went through ground zero, weeks, months afterwards, that have gotten cancer, that have died because of this. You know, being there a few weeks after the attacks, the smell, the burning, whether it was asbestos, whether it was steel, whatever, it still was churning. It was still burning. Imagine your job every day, rescue, recover, going in there. What is Congress doing? Okay? And I'm trying to give this to you with a smile here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. What is Congress doing? The Democrats said that if they got majority of the House, that they would change things. They would work with the president. Impeaching the president is not working with the president, right? Impeaching the president is not working with the president. Refunding the 9/11 Victims Fund, that's pretty nonpartisan. I think everybody can agree on that, right? I think everybody can agree on that. And the room was half empty. So Jon Stewart, channeling his inner President Trump, let him have it.
It's what gave a reeling nation a solid foundation to stand back upon, to remind us of why this country is great, of why this country is worth fighting for. And you are ignoring them.
Exactly. You know, we always say, what can we do? Well, let's put pressure on Congress to do something. You know, they can sit there and Jerry Nadler, and we'll hear from Jerry Nadler, we'll hear from Joe Biden, we'll hear from everybody else. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, you remember that song by Daryl Worley, Have You Forgotten? When those towers fell, our Pentagon, that field in Pennsylvania. Does that resonate with you? It seems to be that the Congress has forgotten about this. So Jon Stewart's right, is he not? To let these guys have it and say, guys, this is not the case. Following his 5-minute statement, the room filled with sick and dying 9/11 first responders gave Stewart a standing ovation. Mr. Stewart noting that a little over half of the 14-member subcommittee even showed up to the hearing. He called them shameful. He called them an embarrassment to this country and a stain on this institution. Can you imagine being sick and dying, going to your government? Remember, well, we hailed the firefighters, we hailed the police officers. And what is this? How many years later? You know, during the September 11th attacks, some of the major networks, radio networks that existed at the time, now there's really Fox News, right? Fox News on the radio, that's it. So whether it was Fox News or the now defunct ABC News, they would offer you a package to go to September 11th, to go to Ground Zero, and do your show from there. So 5 years, you had a group of stations go. 10 years, didn't offer it anymore. 15 years, 20 years, 20 years coming up. You know, you go back to that song by Daryl Worley, Have You Forgotten? Have we forgotten? And I can't get over why Congress is delaying the funding on this. What the heck is going on with this? I would hope that Jon Stewart, through his resources, through his anger, through his everything else, could make that happen. Coming up next, believe it or not, one prominent Democrat called the Attorney General, William Barr, one of the best attorney generals in the country. We'll tell you who that is next. Plus your calls on the issue, Have We Forgotten? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
I think he's the weakest mentally. And I like running against people that are weak mentally. I think Joe is the weakest up here.
Coming up, it is President Trump versus former Vice President Joe Biden in Iowa.
I mean, it's bizarre and it's damaging. And so I think he's genuinely a threat to our core values. And he's a threat to our standing in the world.
There we have it. Good morning, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Liberal Steve. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Good morning, citizens of Idaho. And those of you in America and the world listening to Kevin Miller on 580 radio across the internet, 107.5 FM. Say, Miller, what's with this socialist country anyway? Why do we need our tax dollars to pay for firemen and policemen and everything else that runs under our tax dollars under a socialist system? Why can't we have corporate America handling all that? They hire the firemen, they hire the police. If they get hurt, their insurance takes care of it. Why do we have to fork it out through our tax dollars? That's socialism. Pure and simple. Capitalism, someone would own it and take care of it, including the forest fires, and we could bill the federal government for what things cost. And Mitch McConnell wouldn't be in control of not overturning this and letting the $1.4 billion go back into where it needs to go. But no, we continue to play this socialist game. And what's with this coroner in Virginia, this lady saying this lady died from marijuana overdose, THC overdose. The first one ever. She's claiming she stopped breathing because she had too much THC.
Well, you know that marijuana is bad for you.
But, Kevin,
You know, the
20,000
chemicals
people-
that they put in marijuana to process it and grow it are cancer-causing.
It's a weed, Kevin. You put the seed in the ground and it grows
No,
itself. You don't need
It's not
to buy
that
it.
not that simple, according to the American Cancer Society, buddy. But
You
back to
don't
this
need
point,
to-
can we agree that they should fund this 9/11 victims fund?
Well, yes, we should. Of course, Mitch McConnell's
Right.
the only one that's holding
Actually, this was before the House. It wasn't before the Senate.
it up. The Senate.
So
runs
the hearing
House.
was before the House. The House is where the
Yes.
bills start. The money bills
Yep.
start. This is
But
not
the
a
funding
civics.
stops.
This is not a civics class. This is
Yeah,
a talk show.
Don't
The
turn it
U.S.
around.
government told them repeatedly, over and over again, that it was safe to work at the site. Soon deaths from 9/11 diseases may outnumber those lost on that fateful day.
Behind me, a filled room of 9/11 first responders. And in front of me, a nearly empty Congress. Sick and dying, they brought themselves down here to speak to no one. It's shameful. It's an embarrassment to the country, and it is a stain on this institution. And you should be ashamed of yourselves for those that aren't here, but you won't be. Because accountability doesn't appear to be something that occurs in this chamber.
Now, can't we agree on that statement?
Well, I can agree, but I wished he would have pointed out that 80% of the Congress people that were there, congressmen and women, were Democratic.
Thank you for the call,
can't-
sir.
Oh, you bet. Oh, and Kevin,
And Liberal
Thanks,
Steve.
and don't let them run this fear-mongering thing on this one lady that died. 20,000 people die a year from alcohol-related accidents. And last year in the United States, 2,000
You know, when
men
we
died.
say thank you, it's time to go.
2,000 men in the United States died
Thank
from
you.
taking Viagra and Cialis. And tell Matt.
Traffic and weather together. Our time is 6:26. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Dave.
And we're going to begin the news at 5 with breaking news. A major crash at the intersection of Eagle Road and Highway 44. The Ada County Sheriff's Office tweeting a picture and says early information shows that an SUV heading eastbound on State Street, that's Highway 44, tried to turn left on a blinking yellow light and then crashed into a van going the other direction. The impact of that crash pinning the van to a traffic pole. And the picture does not look good, as you can see it here. And the cleanup is causing major traffic delays right now in virtually every direction. All directions are affected. The Sheriff's Office asking drivers to avoid that area. We do not have word on the extent.
And there we have it. We thank our friends at Channel 7 for that accident. A 65-year-old man lost his life last night. No word on what happened, a blinking yellow light. Obviously, another issue involving transportation. This time, one of the worst places it could happen. Let's face it, anywhere on Eagle Road, anytime on Eagle Road, it's the worst place that these accidents can happen. Pardon me, a 63-year-old man died after the rollover crash yesterday afternoon, Highway 44 in Eagle Road. Apparently, the man was the driver of a van that rolled over and became pinned against a traffic light. Here you have it, 3:15 in the afternoon. A blinking yellow light. Now, the driver in SUV was turning, collided with the van, traveling west on Highway 44. We don't know if anybody will be charged with this. Blinking yellow lights can be tough. People are going very fast. Obviously, we don't want to play the blame game, but this shows you just how limited our infrastructure is. This time internally, it was less than a week ago that we had this major rollover crash on I-84, blocking all these lanes. Now, are you still willing to say, well, Kevin Miller, these things happen, and we're just going to have to get used to being in traffic? I got to tell you, it's not even really orange cone season, but it amazes me how many roads are shut down right now because of repairs. I'd like to address that issue with you next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning is your home for Fox News on the radio. And we were just talking about this moments ago, a very emotional day in Congress with Jon Stewart seeking Congress to reauthorize the 9/11 Victims Fund funding. It was very emotional yesterday. Before we get to Tanya J. Powers, one more time, Jon Stewart here on KIDO Talk Radio.
I'm pretty sure what's going to happen 5 years from now. More of these men and women are going to get sick and they are going to die. And I am awfully tired of hearing that it's a 9/11 New York issue. Al-Qaeda didn't shout death to Tribeca.
We're joined now by Tanya J. Powers, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio, 580 AM, 107.5 FM. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we've heard Jon Stewart address Congress. What else happened yesterday?
Well, he addressed Congress in no uncertain terms, as you just played some of that. We also heard from other survivors' families. We heard from first responders, one of them a special agent for the FBI, who witnessed the plane crash at the Pentagon, where he was at the time, and, of course, ran in to help out and, do what he could to help those who were inside and trying to get out. We heard from one of the people who was a high school student. Lila Nordstrom is her name. She was a high school student at Stuyvesant High School in Lower Manhattan on 9/11, and that school is it's been rebuilt and everything, but it is in Lower Manhattan and was really close to where all this happened. And she talked about having been in that school and how they sent them back into it on October 9th after 9/11, and so a month later, they're going back to school. She said the filters in the school had not been replaced. There had not been a, deep cleaning. That wouldn't even come for several more months. I guess, thinking, okay, we can do a lot of this next summer when they're out, that kind of thing. She said that she has former classmates of hers that have been diagnosed with cancers, 9/11-related illnesses. They've even lost some classmates due to 9/11-related cancers that they're diagnosed with. Now, if you were a high school student on 9/11, you're not very old right now, and the fact that she testified and she was like, this affected so many students that, I think a lot of people, our main thought is, okay, first responders who went in and rushed in and gave their lives for this, and some who are paying the ultimate price 18 years later with the diagnosis of some of these diseases and illnesses. And the students and the people who worked and lived in that area also were affected by this. I think they said 10,000 students below Houston Street, to give you an idea of Lower Manhattan's student population on 9/11. There's a community college that is near Ground Zero. It's just a few blocks away. That was affected. There was a university. There were lots of students down there. So she talked about that. It was very powerful testimony from all of them. I think Jon Stewart is getting the most recognition, obviously, because of his name recognition and his celebrity. But this is not the first time he's done this. He has been an advocate for these people for years. Every April, there is a 9/11 family day and 5K, to raise money for different things that are associated with, 9/11 nonprofits and things like that. I've actually participated in it before, and he is usually the one there, at the starting line, revving everybody up and getting them all excited for the day and reminding people, hey, this is what we're here, to benefit. So this is not he doesn't just go and get in front of the cameras when he gets a chance. He is there for these people all the time.
Really reminds me of that Darryl Worley song, Have We Forgotten? Have You Forgotten?
Yeah, I remember when, in 9/11 happened and all of those, we heard that one. I think it was an Alan Jackson song, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning? There were, so many musical tributes like that do remind you of that day. Some of the things they were talking about yesterday. I mean, Jon Stewart got really pretty passionate about the whole thing. And he even said, he brought it up, and he was not the only one who did, that, the people who were missing from that subcommittee meeting, and there were quite a few empty chairs. I actually wondered about that when I saw this on the feed, and I was monitoring this hearing before it started, and I thought, when are these people going to get there? And an hour and a half of opening statements and everything goes by, and these chairs are still empty of subcommittee members who had not shown up. And that's one of the things he called out yesterday was these people, it took literally, the response time was 5 seconds to get into the towers and run down there and all these responders who, there's literally a fire station on the corner across from where these towers stood, which is where the memorial stands. 5 seconds is their response time. He said, they ran in and they did their jobs. He said 18 years later, you need to do yours.
Any fallout from this already? Have anybody apologized?
I haven't seen any apologies necessarily, and I've been looking for a list of the people who weren't there. I'm not sure who didn't show up on the subcommittee because I couldn't tell from the angle I was watching this on it, as because I had a feed of the hearing that I was watching. But I'd kind of like to know, and I'm surprised that there hasn't. I'm sure that's probably coming. I'm sure that there have been some reporters in Washington who've gone around to offices and said, "Okay, what were you doing yesterday at 10 o'clock when this hearing started?" I'm just, where were you? I would be interested to see if we'll see that. I know that there have been some that have said this funding should be passed with a landslide. Now, how long they're going to fund it for is a different story because they had to do this in 2015. That's why it's running out again. That's what he was asking for. He said, look, they shouldn't have to come back every few years and beg for money.
Tanya J. Powers, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. By the way, we'd love to get your thoughts on that, number one. Number two, Joe Biden years ago said, William Barr is a great attorney general. Coming up, a new story from The Hill basically saying that the Trump administration wants to mine near the Grand Canyon for uranium. We'll give you the details on that, plus other issues. But I want to talk about this public hearing going on in the city of Boise. Now, again, we value ourselves that not only do we serve the city of Boise, we serve the entire Treasure Valley. My criticism of local media is it's all Boise, 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 when there are wonderful stories going on. And I think the story in the city of Boise is, does the Beater regime, and really he's the longest serving or one of the longest serving mayors in the city of Boise, does he continue? Of course, Mayor Beaters have family ties here, blah, 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 known in the community. There isn't a ribbon cutting that he goes to that he doesn't want to be a part of. But you've got some issues. You've got some Teflon falling off. You've got a challenger, I believe, from his left for the first time ever. You also have people fed up with the excessive taxes. You have people, well, you could say that for every city in the Treasure Valley now. You have people fed up with these stadium projects, with the new library, and people want a chance to vote on it. They don't want their taxes going up for the special interests. One could argue that a new stadium and a new library is just going to add to the downtown congestion that we have. Let's take a listen concerning the new stadium and the new library, and where do we go from here?
It's a constant learning process of what can and can't be done. Today, the City Council set a date for the public to comment on the ordinances before the council determines the next steps. The group Boise Working Together previously gathered thousands of signatures on petitions calling for the city to hold a vote on the projects. Enough signatures were verified at the end of May, but as written, the ordinances would require the public to approve the voting process first, meaning November ballot initiatives would be a vote to have a vote. And whether the project should actually happen would have to be a second public vote at a later date. Mayor Beater says that process would be too confusing for voters, so he wants to adopt the ordinances.
It's pretty uncharted waters here. We want to respect the initiative process and those that signed that.
Look, I don't think that Mayor Dave Beater understands the level of frustration with him and his regime. And in the era of being politically correct, let me apologize now for calling it a regime, because you cannot be controversial anymore. as we were the only source. And the reason why I say this is when people attack us and attack you for being involved in conservatism and being involved in holding government accountable, there's a reason why. There's only one group of individuals, and that's us here, that have said this goofy Be Kind project is nothing more than the mayor getting his positives up to help fund, at least emotionally, at least with his Q rating, which is his popularity ratings, through city money. Look, we saw that with Governor Otter. There wasn't a public service announcement that Governor Otter didn't like. Charismatic, swashbuckling, yes. But you had the state of Idaho paying for Ollie the Otter. You remember Ollie the Otter? Maybe you didn't. It was a campaign where you had the governor and the first lady telling people to stay out of the canals, right? We saw this all the time. And people are going, well, that's a good public service. Yes, it's also getting on television for free. And what we're seeing right now here is the mayor with his Be Kind campaign. And isn't that what? $80,000 that the city is paying for? Look, and if you live in the city of Boise, this is where your tax dollars go, to teach people to be kind. I'm sorry. I'm going to, once again, and if it is offensive to you, I guess I can't apologize enough. We just live in an overly sensitive world. You are an adult. You are a God-fearing, tax-paying, gun-toting, law-abiding citizen that you should not apologize for loving America or living in Idaho. And I just think it's kind of strange that we have the mayor of the largest city of the state capital having a campaign urging people to be kind. With all due respect, you get that from your house of worship. You get that from your family. You get that from your friends. We don't need a government entity telling people to be kind. But the mayor gets his numbers up. He gets reelected thanks to the taxpayers with this Be Kind campaign. And all of a sudden, you get the stadium. All of a sudden, you get the library. Is there a groundswell for this? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You had people getting enough petitions saying, let's let the public decide. If anything, that has to be a vote of no confidence for the current administration. No, we don't trust you or the city council to tax us anymore. And when people say this would be great entertainment, I didn't know it was government's role to entertain us. If that's the case, we could watch the live feed from Congress. So that's another issue. Also getting back to this issue, Highway 44 and Eagle Road, we lost a 63-year-old man yesterday, pinned next to a light pole. Excessive speeds. People not looking, people on their phones, dangerous times in the Treasure Valley, and inadequate roads. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Not so fast. Former Attorney General Eric Holder, we will continue to fight for freedoms that Americans outside of this program continue to give away, right? Oh, my goodness gracious. We'll talk a little bit more about that next hour. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Robert in Kuna. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. I listen to you every morning. It's the first time I've ever called you.
Thank you, sir.
So I am a truck driver. I drive the same exact type of truck that had the accident last Friday. And, it's just an observation. Sitting up this high, driving the roads every day all over the valley, there's the courtesy. The courtesy is missing in this town. When I first moved here 26 years ago, people didn't have a problem letting you go at a stop sign or keeping some distance from you. It seems like people have forgotten that, and I think it's gotten a lot worse within the last couple of years with all the influx of people from out of state.
Oh, I would agree with you, and you have one of the toughest jobs imaginable, Robert, dealing with people zipping in and out of traffic, cutting trucks off. I've seen this. Look, I'm no brilliant person, but I don't mess with trucks. But you have a lot of people that apparently believe that you have the same control over a vehicle that somebody else in a small subcompact does.
Yeah, absolutely not. It takes us roughly 3 foot off freeway speeds. When I get muted, and I was actually working the same job that truck that had the accident on Friday was. We were hauling out to Mountain Home Air Force Base to take sand out there for the runway repairs. And when we're loaded, we weigh roughly anywhere from 1,000 to 105,000 pounds. Now that's a lot of tonnage. That's 50 some odd tons. It doesn't just stop on a dime. We don't steer like cars do. And people just have to learn to give us the space we need. Don't cut right in front of us, and give us. When I'm driving, I try to give myself at least a football field of space between me and the next vehicle. And I've got vehicles all day long cutting right in front of me and taking away that space. It's just important that people understand they need to stay away from us.
I agree. They need to respect people that are driving these big, heavy loads. Robert, good luck on the roads today, brother.
Thank you, sir. And I really appreciate what you do every morning. I listen to the show every morning as I drive. I'm driving right now using, a hands-free device, being safe. And I think a lot more people, if they would just get their damn cell phones out of their hand, too, and use a hands-free device, we'd be a lot better off.
Agreed, Robert. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Oh, boy, that's a great call when you're talking about hands-free devices. Didn't we talk a little bit about that before? Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Dave. Quickly to Lee Joe. We've got about a minute left. Go ahead, please, Lee Joe.
Yeah, Kevin, I just got to chime in with Robert. I'm driving a 10-axle truck. Driving the biggest loads there are in Boise. I'm 16 feet tall, 14 feet wide. I weigh 175,000 pounds. And people drive around here in the last 2 years, like I remember them driving in California when I drove a semi down there once in a while. I mean, there's truck drivers who won't even go into California anymore because everybody drives with a death wish. And I'm seeing it here, and I'm seeing it here way too much. There's this thing called a blinker, and just because it flashes one time doesn't mean you get to have the lane next to you. You need to take the time and move. So,
thank you, Lee Joe. Good luck today.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.